Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sansad TV with your host Kriti Mishra. And joining us in the studio is the member of Lok Sabha from Telangana representing the Peddapalli Constituency. Mr. Gaddam, welcome to Sansad TV and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Let's begin talking about your political journey, your electoral journey. Of course, you belong to an illustrious family known in the political circles. How did you think of the political plunge?
No, I've always thought of getting into some sort of public service right from my childhood. I first started off in the professional space. I have a science degree, so I wanted to innovate something for people at large to help humanity, human race propel forward. That was my earlier thought process. And I started working on green energy, sustainable solutions. That's where I started my journey from. I have a patent in solar roofs. I'm one of the first Indians to get a patent against Elon Musk's solar roof in the US. And then I have about 10 patents in the electric vehicle space. So that's where I come from. That's my original thought process. From there, we had a very interesting experience, very interesting exposure to the ongoing corruption in Telangana. I remember seeing my grandfather and then my father fight for Telangana since the last, I think my grandfather obviously from the 1969 agitation and then my father from the 2004-2009 agitation. So I've been seeing the fight for Telangana happen from since very early on, since my childhood. And over the last 10 years I've been hearing about, seeing how Telangana government has been run by the TRS party and how the corruption had taken way overboard, how it was being impacting the common man of the state. And that's where even I started feeling that maybe young educated minds should enter the system where people are taking advantage of the people at large. That's how my thought process changed, and that's when I started thinking more seriously about can we look at getting involved in public service very early on rather than much later. And that's how my career or my thought process rather shifted towards entering the public service space.
So political space and entrepreneurial journey, two different worlds.
Yeah.
How did they converge together for you?
No, I think one thought process has been very clear in my mind, that is about social business, social service, a social aspect of giving back or doing something for the larger good. I think that is my underlining theme in terms of what I always try to find in the work I do, in the things I try to add my part in terms of creating an impact. Always try to look at, is there anything that I can personally add value to this scenario, this situation, this problem. So right, I think ever since I was in school or even college, I would always try to be a rebel in terms of what can I contribute, what can I do differently, not follow the norms. I think I got an opportunity to be a TEDx speaker also very early on in my life. And I'm just recollecting while you're asking, even in that speech, even in that talk, I actually talked about how to be a rebel for the better. Why should we accept the norms as they are? Why can't things be better is always what the thought process was. So I think the sustainability aspect I took on very early in my life, because I felt going forward, if you're not sustainable, if you're not having a green way of life, how are we going to create the next future for our next generations, future for our children? So that's what the thought process was there. That correlating to what's happening, I've been frequently visiting Peddapalli over the last 10 years. And I always felt why infrastructure development was so behind schedule. Why were we struggling even though we have the highest amount of natural resources in Peddapalli, in my area in Telangana is the highest in terms of coal reserves. We have the highest in terms of water supply. Godavari goes through my constituency. So we have very good quality of soil for agriculture. So be it agriculture or be it the industry, both have a lot of natural resources and a natural stage where we can develop from. And I would always think about why we are not going forward, why are we not developing further, why are we not getting that impact that we could have created. So that was, I think, predominantly my thought process in terms of saying, okay, using my thought process, using my experience, how can we help create jobs today in our country overall. Even if you look at India as a whole and then particularly Telangana, we have the youngest demographic. We proudly keep talking about how India is the youngest demographic across the world. But you're going to have a big problem if this youngest demographic is unemployed, right? As we all know, empty minds is the most dangerous thing for any home and then any state, any country. So I always was thinking about how can we create better opportunities for people in our country, people in our state, people in my constituency. Because a very sad experience that I had while campaigning in the 2023 assembly elections was I would meet many people my age, much younger than me, 5-10 years younger than me, who are graduates, who are science graduates, BCom graduates, who have done MBAs, and quite sadly they would end up driving auto rickshaws or doing many menial jobs which were not proposed in their grand scheme of educational things. Having said that, no job is a small job. Every job has to be taken seriously.
That's true.
But as a country, if you have to grow to fight with the superpowers, what every time we keep discussing about how India is going to be the next $1 trillion economy, we need our individuals, we need our country citizens to start contributing much larger to their own families first, and then the country, of course. So that is what my core focus has been. In fact, I recently happened to visit Dubai also, where I got a chance to meet the foreign ministry there, and we were talking about how can we bring industries to Telangana state. As you know, Telangana is very proactive in terms of our industry, in terms of the pharmaceutical industry, in terms of IT, and we have close to about almost 2 lakh crores of exports happening just on IT space.
That's right.
So these are opportunities that I see, and my job mainly as a public representative, especially from Peddapalli, is how can I take people from my constituency to the state level and then to the national level and then of course to the global level, and this has been my core focus. I remember many people were asking me, what is your core point of your campaign going to be? What are you going to contribute to Peddapalli in the next 5 years? And very interestingly, I have to share that since my grandfather's time, my grandfather was a member of parliament in Peddapalli for almost 35 years, and he's been a 7-time member of parliament, 3-time union minister, and couple of times in the state ministry as well. And people always keep a benchmark in terms of how he contributed, what were his contributions, and I was shocked to see that in spite of Telangana being achieved, the development in my area had been way behind. It was completely neglected, and my core focus has been on infrastructure development, be it road connectivity or be it railway connectivity. We've always had an issue in terms of connectivity just because we are in the northern part of Telangana. And I believe that for any area to be developed, first thing that we need to do is infrastructure development, be it roads or railway, and that has been my core focus. In fact, in the last 2 years I've been very aggressive. I've been fighting with Nitin Gadkari ji and Ashwini Vaishnav ji to give us good sanctions, and I'm very happy to share with you, we got almost 100 crore sanction of new national highways to my constituency.
Fantastic.
That's been one, and the second has been the Vande Bharat Express. We've made special requests, special demands, and even had a very good question answer to and fro session in the Parliament with Ashwini ji, and he has also granted us the stops. So Ramagundam and Mancherial, we have 2 stops in my constituency, which is now being serviced by Vande Bharat, and even the Vande Bharat Express has gone into profitability after the stops being added on. So these are signs where a good national governance with local demands are met. I think ultimately people have to appreciate, people have to grow, and if we as public representatives can do that, can fight with the central government, and then the central government also looks at the real demand and delivers, I think that is where our jobs really lies in terms of how we can help common man of our country grow forward. So that's been
as a public representative.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm also reminded of the fact that you also talked to several industry chambers and confederations to come and invest in Peddapalli.
Yes.
The entire slogan was invest in Peddapalli. You talked about abundant natural resources in your constituency. Tell us more about that initiative.
Absolutely. So one thing I have to talk about when I talk about Peddapalli is the Singareni colonies. It's the coal mining company, and so one thing that I have to point out is that the pension scheme that was introduced by my grandfather in the 90s. Earlier we had no pension, so if somebody would retire from a PSU or from his job, he would have no pension that would be serviced to him after he resigns or after his tenure, retirement. So my grandfather Kaka Venkat Swami ji was the person to introduce pension schemes when he was Labour Minister, and that's the good part of it. The bad part of it was the rates haven't been increased or revised since it was launched. So since the last 30 years, the same 500 rupees pension which a retired employee was getting had been the same amount. So that was a very interesting difficulty, challenge that people put on me. They said, go fight for us and increase the rates for us. So that was one of my main agenda, coming to the Parliament and fighting, hearing what the public requirement was on ground, to voicing their demands in the Parliament, and even that got a good response. We got a reply of almost 150 crores allotment to the pension fund of Singareni. So why I'm sharing this with you is, in my area it is very important to have PSUs enter, because natural resources are supposed to be used for the benefit of the people at large.
True.
If a private player comes into the scheme of using natural resources, it becomes a more capitalistic thought process, it becomes more profit driven, it becomes more the businessman oriented rather than public oriented. And that is really my core focus, what I've been trying to do in Peddapalli, trying to create awareness around Peddapalli is, we have a lot of natural resources. Can we bring in more government funding, government backed PSUs to help create employment? Now PSU's main goal is not profit.
True.
Actually it's more on a service based. The way I view PSUs is that a country's government can use tools like PSUs to create more employment, to create a balanced ecosystem wherein the locals also get benefit out of the natural resources. Quite often what we see and the stories we hear across the country is that some private player ends up taking the benefit of the natural resources, leaving the locals without proper R&R policies, without proper implementation of giving locals employment. So that has been my core focus. Even recently I'm trying to fight for expansion of NTPC. For 3 into 800 megawatt. So we've got in principle clearance for that also. So my job now is to follow up with the Power Ministry, Khattarji, and ensure that the 3 into 800 megawatt also comes into Peddapalli Ramagundam area, where it will create more jobs.
Right.
So first step for me is to ensure that the construction and the plant establishment happens. Second phase of my job would be to ensure that at least 80% of the jobs are filled by locals. So these are the thought processes. This is what I'm trying to create in terms of saying, if as a representative of Peddapalli constituency, if I can bring in investments which are rightly due to my region, create employment for the youth of my region, to ensure that the overall awareness increases, the overall job opportunity increases. I think I would have done a small bit of why people have chosen me to represent them.
Absolutely. Then the entire area prospers.
Absolutely.
But that was about your constituency, your electoral journey. Talking about your parliamentary life. Of course, you belong to this family which is illustrious in political circles. But how was the experience entering Parliament of India for the first time as first-time MP?
No, absolutely. I've been very fortunate, very lucky, and I must say that I never imagined that I will be sitting here, to be honest, in terms of the grand scheme of the way I thought my life will be. I was more focused on innovation. I was more focused on creating, the whole startup culture is happening. So I thought even I should do a startup and contribute to my country that way. But life had different plans. I had a very good opportunity to enter the parliament, and I must say that the service that my grandfather has done, people remember that, and most of the requests that I put in to the ministries, to the officers, they all respond immediately because they have a connect with my predecessor. And that has been really overwhelming. For me, that has only motivated me to do my job with more integrity and more passion, because I am realizing that it's been almost 10 years since my grandfather has passed. Even after 10 years, people remember meeting him for the first time and the kind of impact he had on them and on my constituency. So that really feels like it's fuel for my my motivation, my determination to do much harder work. Yeah.
And your experiences in Parliament, something that you remember very vividly?
My first experience was, of course, walking into the Parliament and taking oath. And I remember during my campaign, because of my Singareni colonies there, we wear the Singareni uniform when we go to campaign, to tell them that we are one of you and please bless us. That is the logic there. And the day I took oath, I thought that I should represent Peddapalli in the Parliament, and I wore the Singareni uniform to my oath taking ceremony. So that felt very, it was a very humbling experience, because when I walked on and I started taking my oath, the people of my constituency felt really happy. They felt that I was truly representing Peddapalli in the national front, and that was a very humbling experience for me.
Absolutely, one can understand that. But before we wrap up this conversation, what is your message to the other budding politicians who look up to you?
I don't know. I still am very new. I'm only 2 years in, 1.5, 2 years in. But I think not just for politicians, but people at large, I think generally we shy away from taking positions which may look at from far end, which may look like they are difficult or cumbersome or very dynamic in terms of not knowing what can happen. And I think that kind of feeling really puts many people on the back foot. I've talking with experience where even I felt politics means it's always a little dicey, it is a little wary of how things would be. But I think these are the tough calls that people need to take if you really want a good future. And today all of us are young adults. We are seeing the next generations going up. And it is very important that we leave the earth in a better place than how we found it. I believe that right from childhood. And for a country like ours, where so many things are happening, I think even when I meet my friends who are abroad, who are working in different countries, I always tell them, I said, you should come back to India, because India is where we began, and India is the place where we need to grow things, not grow for other countries. So my single message to everybody watching is, please think about how can we contribute to our country.
Absolutely.
How can we contribute to our society, and then how can we contribute to our family, because I think these are the priorities one should have coming from India. And if we can do our small bit, if each of us can do our small bit, then we'll have at least 100 crore people working on one unified direction, which is to make India great. I think that will be a great start to begin with. Yeah.
Well, that's truly, truly meaningful. Of course, today's episode was all about your political and parliamentary life. All ears for your green innovations, perhaps in the next episode. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye for now from my side.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.